Yeah.
Now, I'll talk about cricket now. I'll come back home to Nigeria. What's happening in cricket? In Anambra State, they're starting a tournament tomorrow, talking about the Southeast tournament. It's a cricket championship. It's been held every year. This is the 7th edition, and the Anambra State Cricket Association was in Lagos. They had a press conference on Friday, talked about the events that is coming up in Anambra State. 5 states from the east, Enugu happens to be defending champions. But another thing is, I mean, in that process, as the former vice chairman of Nigeria Cricket Association, talking about Chuba Anosike, we have to ask him some questions concerning development of cricket in Nigeria and what they've been doing to actually ensure that, well, cricket is back to how it used to be. But in 2012, we had a steady rise. But then he went back to why he was one of the board members, how it used to be, and how they're actually trying to take it up to the next level. But the level it is now, it's not so bad, but it wasn't as it used to be. We just listened to Chuba Anosike talking about developing cricket in Nigeria.
To put one's finger on it, but I think there's been a decline. I think people generally accept that. The indices obviously support that. We've devoted Syria over the last 3 years. We're now back in the Africa League from where we emerged a few years ago. So clearly there's something wrong. It could be with administration. Perhaps maybe government needs to look into that area as well. And I think the stakeholders, some of the stakeholders have perhaps not given the kind of time they should. And there have been issues over the years, some of which I think are public knowledge as well. But I think it's something we should, as stakeholders, look at seriously. Because if there's any further decline, then I think it might not go well for the future of the game. I remember a few years ago, when we were on board, there was a plan to basically take Nigeria from, we started off an affiliate country, then the West Africa system, we became an associate, and the plan was to evolve to one-day playing side. We believed at the time that there was sufficient talent, and then the vision was there. And things were put in place to actualize that vision. But unfortunately, when we left the board, I really don't know what happened. NCF, as the primary administrative body for cricket at national level, has to do something. The government has to get involved. Stakeholders have to get involved. Because if this rot and the slide continues, then we will find ourselves back to where we were maybe perhaps in the 70s or worse. When we were, I hear now Ghana is even ranked ahead of us. I mean, that's a total aberration. At the time we left the board, we were playing teams in East Africa, with aspiration to move down to South Africa and so on, and engage with teams in that sort of zone. To bring us back to West Africa, where we have a couple of countries ahead of us, for me, that's really sad. What we've tried to do in the Southeast, particularly Anambra and a couple of other states, is to try and get the schools donating equipment and so on, sending coaches in there. Because you catch them at that stage, the interest is there, that's one. And then in terms of developing the skill level and skill sets they need, you can start early. Because it's harder to train a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old than it is to train an 11-year-old. But I think what needs to happen now is that those who truly love the game need to realize that if the rot continues, then the game is going to be dead. So whatever issues they have to put aside, come together and rescue the game.
Okay, that's Anosike there talking about how they can actually rescue the game and make it better. Another thing he touched is about the fact that, it's easier to teach a kid, a child, in school than the one who is 18 or 17 years old, especially when you want to develop it from the very beginning. Quickly, we'll talk about the return of Obamate, right? I mean,
yeah.
He's back.
Career-threatening injury he had, last season, but it's back now because he played against the Rangers International at the weekend. So, like I said, hopefully he can stay fit. These injuries can be very funny, and they can have they have ways of reoccurring at times. Hopefully that's not the case because he's a very important player for Rivers United.
Okay, very, very important. We'll go for a break now. We'll come back. We'll get to listen to him.